Fernanda Croissonol. Hello and welcome back to our coverage of Rally Ceredigion 2023. It is the JDS Machinery Rally Ceredigion, to give it its full title. It is the penultimate round of the 2023 Protyre Motorsport UK Asphalt Rally Championship. And it's only the penultimate round because the final round is tomorrow. If you've been with us for either of our live streams from this morning's stages, or indeed you were with us for the ceremonial start last night, I've explained it. I will probably explain it again as the afternoon goes on, but I'll run through the runners and riders for the Protyre Championship, the various class positions and so forth, and also we'll be talking about some of the dramas that we've seen and heard so far today. It's Mark James. Alongside me is Matthew Jackson, MJ ×2. God, they couldn't have got it more confusing, could they?
It's only taken me a day and a half, or almost a day now, to work that out, yeah.
Right, busy one this morning. We are, where are we, about 3 minutes or so away from this fifth stage of the rally. It is a loop of 3 stages that we had this morning. So we have no coverage on stage 1, the little one. It's a 5.29 mile stage at Borth. We are on Cwmerfyn, which is 4.3 miles. And then Paul Woodford and Hugh Hunter are on the Cwm Ystwyth, the long stage, the 17 miler. They were there this morning and they'll be back there this afternoon. So keep an eye on your social media alerts for them going live, and then all being well, we will all be back in Aberystwyth this evening for 2 little half-mile stages that round off day 1 of the rally, and as I say, the penultimate round of the Protyre Championship this year. Let's just run through some of the issues we saw earlier on. We were at junction 12 on this stage this morning. We're now at junction 3, so we've moved up into the stage. Lots of dramas.
There was lots of drama. I think the overnight, I say there's a bit of rainfall overnight, and that just the morning sort of mist of the morning dew made things a little bit slippery under the trees and on the grass, and that caught out many people. There was that hairpin left, which looked very innocuous, turned out to be
anything but.
Absolutely. So some of the, I say even the front runners riders, the runners and riders all the way through the field, they're losing considerable amounts of time actually getting stuck on the grass. So yeah, what a place this morning. And it just shows that anything can happen actually.
Yeah. Oshan Price clean through when we saw him earlier, but then from the second car on the road, James Williams and Di Roberts, they slid wide on that second hairpin, and that was pretty much the story of how it went. Pretty much every other car was going off.
They was. Then obviously Mayo and Evans came through then with a puncture, so obviously more time lost in a different manner there. Yes, it was, like I say, the amount of time lost just by a small mistake, but these stages are there to catch you.
Absolutely. Some bad news to bring you, which unfortunately involves our reigning Protyre champion Steve Wood. Steve, after we saw him on stage 2, had a puncture on stage 3. The jack wouldn't work, so very frustrating end to the season for Steve. So the car took the competitors took a maximum on stage 3, and then on the way back to service, we understand the clutch is gone, so that's it, end of rally for Steve.
Yeah, it sounds that way, which is a shame. You know, Steve lives 500 metres from the start of stage 1, so you know when your rally's that local, it's a shame to end in retirement. But you know that is the game.
Unfortunately, it is. So we are quite close to the stage. We were a couple of 100 metres from the end of the stage this morning. We are at we're at junction 3, excuse me, on stage 5 for this coverage for this afternoon. As I say, we'll be here for not the whole field, because we do have to cut and run down to Aberystwyth to make sure that we're there in plenty of time for the live stage this evening. And I think it'll be a similar story from Paul, who's on the following stage, the long one at Cwm Ystwyth. But I'll keep an eye on producer Wayne and see what he tells us. We're now probably less than a minute away from first car into the stage, so we do have to say thank you and well done actually to the club running this stage, one of the clubs running this stage, which is Mull Car Club, and several of them have already said hello. As we were driving up to the stage this morning, we saw various boards saying Mull Car Club stage arrival and so forth, but it's not just the boards that are here. Several members of the club have made the long journey down from Scotland, so not only our usual thanks to the marshals, the rescue crews and the recovery guys that we saw in action earlier on, but also to the clubs that have gone above and beyond and have made the long journey down to mid Wales. So then, we can hear car 1, Oshan Price and Stefan Prevost approaching us now in the Polo R5. A bit of the pressure taken off Oshan and Stefan. because of that puncture involving Marion and the spin involving James. As we were saying this morning, the lack of seat time doesn't seem to be hurting him.
No, it doesn't. He's going very well. Just checking the results there. I think it's a fairly healthy lead at the moment of 30 seconds. But as we saw this morning, you could drop that 30 in just a flash with one small error. So very smooth there from Oshan. So yeah, good.
Now, your brother Jonathan, JJ, is alongside Marion Evans. Have you spoken to him at all?
Had a couple of messages. They're fastest on stage 1 and stage 3 if it wasn't for the puncture. So in the groove, having a good day, I believe. And yeah, like I say, anyone's game at this point. Anyone can have that luck. It's still a long way to go. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see now what they do through this repeat run.
Let's see what James Williams can do this time then. It should be Hyundai down with us next, car 2. Indeed it is.
I know we're only a couple of corners in, as we expect. Absolutely nothing between them on the little splits we've got going. So what you'd expect, and we'll see what's like in another 3.5 mile time.
You know, we talked about the stage this morning. It's very different in character. Very high hedges for the first, I don't know, mile or so as they come down towards us. Then this is the start of the climb I mentioned. We were in Wayne's Mystery Machine, the van that we travel around in, and it was taking its time, but it was a steady old climb to get up to the top, to where the fan zone is, and then along a bit of a plateau almost along the top, and then eventually dropping down to where we were at junction 12. So this stage pretty much has it all. It's not one sort of characteristic stage all the way through.
It's not, and we saw this morning about the mud being pulled out on the road, so now the sun's out. It'll be really interesting to see how the road's dried or got wet worse, or we can compare the stage times.
Marion and JJ in the second of the Melvin Evans Motorsport Volkswagen Polo R5s. We're talking about, obviously, the Protyre runners predominantly, because that's who we're here to follow. But, of course, it's the BRC competitors and a whole host of escorts and all sorts of exotic and not so exotic machinery that we'll see later on. But, of course, championship leaderboard for the Protyre Championship is all important. Only 2 drivers can win the title, Callum Black and Neil Roskell. Callum, at the moment, after stage 4, I'm assuming, still leads. It's Callum from James Ford, then Neil Roskell third in the championship position, then Kevin Davis, Richard Clues, Wayne Jones, William Hill, Darren Atkinson, Brad Cole and Rob Smith. That's your top 10 from the Protyre runners. And here is Callum. Callum Black and Jack Morton is co-driver in the Rally 2 Fiesta, and it is in fact only 2 Fiestas that can win. Callum knows what he's got to do, Matt. It's just flat out, and he's got to take maximum points both days.
Yeah, that's it. I think when you look at the maths, if you take maximum points on both days, that's all you can do. That's the absolute maximum. So that's all you can do. And so far, obviously, in the driving seat, again, all the drivers so far are absolutely matched at this point. A few corners in as what you'd expect.
Neil Roskell, I suppose, I don't want to say it's his championship to lose, but you know what I mean. He's currently leading the championship, but because he's been so consistent throughout the year, he's got all these, 21 points, 25 points, 28, but not having won an event outright, he can only drop so many points. I think he can only pick up a maximum of 14 extra because of the drop scores. James Ford and Neil Shanks, that is, in the Citroen. That team rather, down to 2 cars now rather than the 3 they started with, because unfortunately of Steve Wood's retirement.
Yeah, James looks doing really well there actually. Sort of very light on the brakes. You see the car sort of unsettle ever so slightly, but looks to be maybe a second up at this point, sort of, thereabouts. But you're absolutely right in terms of going back to the championship. Talk about Neil's consistency. That's incredible consistency over a year. And you do have to be consistent in rallying, but yeah, if Callum gets 2 maximum scores, then he'll just sneak it at the end.
A way to finish the season. We should also say, incidentally, if you were with us right the way through until the bitter end of our feed earlier on, you'll have seen the incidents involving the Armed Forces rally team and the 4 Land Rover Defenders running at the back of the field. Of the 4, only 1 got through the stage cleanly. 1 went off, another one almost went off, and the last one then tapped it. We didn't actually say at the time. We should have done. All of them are okay. They were all out of the cars. We did see one of the co-drivers out trying to flag one of his teammates down unsuccessfully. Of course, coming downhill, very slippery. I think those Land Rovers are all on effectively gravel tyres. Well, you saw if you were with us earlier. If you didn't, please go back and have a look back at the stream. But incidents involving 3 of the 4 defenders, and I was so excited at the fact that they were still with us at the end of the stage. And I think 1, possibly 2, actually made it out, but 1 had to be recovered. It was seriously off, and also the organisers had to arrange for extra hay bales to come in to protect that corner. And it's one, to be fair, you flagged up as we drove down to it.
It is. It's one of those really sort of horrible bends under the trees, downhill, very slippery, very greasy. Like I say, there's a bit of moisture from the morning, and yeah, the mud got pulled out, and unfortunately, that's how it ended for those guys. But yeah, I would say it's great to see that everyone was okay, and stage rerunning now, and bring on plenty more action as it goes on.
Indeed. Now we've seen the 4 of the Polo R5s run by the Melvin Evans team. So we've had Oshan through, we've had Marion through, we had Gary Pearson that we didn't mention earlier with Dan Barrett alongside him, and that was Kevin Davis and Owain Davis, his co-driver, in car number 7. There'll be a gap, or potentially close up actually, because Steve didn't leave service. So Steve Wood should have been car 8 with Kenny Hull alongside. If you're just joining us, the bad news is that our reigning Protyre champion Steve Wood is out of the event, we think with clutch failure, and I think got back to service, but that was it, no further.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's one of those, if you've got a problem, the best place to be is to service, isn't it? So you're not stranded in the stages. But yeah, it's a shame for our reigning champion.
And here's the man who currently leads the Protyre series, Neil Rostov. Neil with Andrew Ruffhead alongside, and Andrew putting out a plea on the WhatsApp competitors group earlier. I think it was Andrew that said that he left stage 3 and put his rally watch on the roof of the car, and then they'd driven off without him putting it back on. So there were a couple of people offering spare watches, but he was asking, if anybody sees my watch just after the finish of 3, can you get it back for me, please? What are these watches, incidentally? I've got one, but just explain the rally time watches.
So you set them to rally time, and they've got many different functions. I think one of the good function, or the most important function, is the countdown timer. So you set your start time, hit go, and it'll count you down, and then start the stopwatch for when at the right, at the right time of day when you're due to start. Then you've got your stopwatch, it records the time, so you've got a log of all your stage times. I guess a necessity for any co-driver.
And I should say, pay tribute to George Donaldson, former championship driver, of course. He's done a bit of media work himself. And that rally time watch was very much George's baby at the time. Mark Kelly, you just saw there in the Skoda. Good to see Mark back out on the stages. He was my guest, my co-commentator on the opening round of the series, the East Riding stages, way back in the end of February. Seems a long time ago now, but Mark was saying, lost a bit of the mojo, lost a bit of the confidence after that big accident last year. It's really good to see Mark back on form.
It is, and last night you could tell how excited he was to be back, and obviously the commitment there for the Protyre next year is just what we wanted to hear. So young Will Atkins sat with him today. Will was due to sit with me on a rally actually last in 2020, and then COVID hit, and that was the end of that, unfortunately. But yeah, we spoke earlier about young up-and-coming talent, so I think Will's one of those co-drivers who really can go places with the right opportunities.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, Mark's had a couple of co-drivers with him alongside him this year. I think in his quest to get back onto the stages. So maybe a regular reappearance with Neil. And we talked about that car this morning, car 11, Alan Carmichael and Claire Williams in the Hyundai i20. Brand new this week. I mean, you can see it's not even had a wrap put on it yet.
Imagine that taking a brand new car down some of these lanes. They felt narrow in the van just earlier, so let alone your brand new wide R5 car, or sorry, Rally 2 car.
Just looking to see where Neil is competing. Is he in the 90s somewhere? Oh, by the way, the feedback that we had earlier, we'll be seeing the Gilburns potentially later on, depending on when we leave to head back down to Aberystwyth. But the two Gilburns running, You know, I was telling you earlier on, Matt, if you don't know the answer to a question, ask the audience. Some brilliant feedback coming back in. The two brothers, I knew they were two brothers. They are members, I think, of Kidwelly Motor Club. One of those cars has got a Cosworth engine in it. The other one's got an S2000 engine. And I think one of them's on standard suspension.
It's incredible, isn't it? You know, it's such a variety.
Andy Davis and Michael Gilby just thumping the bank there coming out of the left-hander. Is a long old climb as well, that you can see them disappearing up into the trees. That is a long drag up to the top, and if you're watching the live stream in the fan zone at the top of the hill, then Andy Davis and Michael Gilby on their way up to you in the R5 Fiesta.
And that's one of those horrible moments where you got that big long climb going, is the car okay, is it not, is it okay? We know how tight and narrow that section is at the top from this morning, so by the sounds of it, just maybe a little bit of cosmetic, but it sounds like they're on the way, which is the main thing.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Bless you, producer Wayne.
Thank you.
The first of our Irish crews, car number 12, Andrew Purcell and Shane Buckley in the Volkswagen Polo. Please tell me you're running a split on this one.
I certainly am.
Good man.
Look at that. I would just look at the results, actually. The stage times have come in. So again, as expected, Oshan has gone fastest again, half a second ahead of James Williams. So again, both those on it there. Then James Ford, Marion. In terms of the championship, only time for Callum, but so Callum's now third overall with it. So if we looked at this morning, Callum's time was actually 20 seconds faster than the first run, so it shows you how the road, as it's dried up, yes, there's going to be the muddy patches, but as the road's dried up, you see now how much faster and how much more speed they can carry over the stages.
And the good news as far as they're concerned is that obviously no bad weather forecast for the weekend, so it's going to be dry today, dry tomorrow. It's just what we need really for a nice end to the season.
It really is, you know, it helps with everything, doesn't it? You know, everyone comes to watch the rally, it's nice and dry. It has this then level of competition on the stages, there's all that grip, and it just, yeah, I mean, is there anything better than a nice sunny day in the Welsh countryside?
We also talked earlier on about the choice of stages that's available to the organisers, because all but one of the stages this year are new. I think one of the stages uses a bit of one of the stages from last year, but that shows the sort of the embarrassment of riches available to the championship organisers. But I'm also hearing that there are stages further to the south of Aberystwyth which could come into play if the event becomes a round of the European Series, which is what we've been talking about for much of the weekend, really.
That'd be great to see, wouldn't it? I guess if they've now run two lots of different stages, then you've already now got double the amount of stage mileage that have been used before. You know, getting the residents used to it, it's fantastic to be able to rally on these closed roads. But you know, everyone needs to understand what it's about, what's involved in the rally. So we'll now have more stages next year. Like you say, if the European Championship does come, and there's nothing wrong with having more stage mileage to choose from than you actually need.
We didn't mention Ian Evans and David Evans in the escort that went through just a minute or so before. That is car 19, John Dalton. The name, of course, synonymous with the development of the Darien. John's got Gwynfor Jones alongside him in the T90 GTR Darien. And Darien developed in a factory in Lampeter by Tim Duffy, which is half an hour or so away from where we are. I need to mention it because I was born in Lampeter, so I'm just getting a plug in for the old hometown.
And obviously Melvin Evans Motorsport based in Lampeter now as well, so it's all local, and that's what we like to see.
But you know, the other thing that's occurred to me, that I speak Welsh, and it's been great to hear so much Welsh being spoken by spectators, by organisers, by the organising team, and it's just that kind of, it just makes it a little bit special. I mean, even if you don't speak Welsh, it's got that little add of something different. It
does, and it's actually, like I say, it's embraced. I mean, my Welsh is very limited.
Tipping bar.
Tipping bar, absolutely. But yeah, like I say, it's great to see, and it's an event supported by a lot of local companies. And that just helps not only the event, but the locals. And like you say, the amount of people that are out this weekend already, and we've still got another whole day to go. So yeah, it's absolutely great for the local economy.
Yeah, and I think we've touched on the professionalism of the organisers and so forth, but it's when you see, we had an archway just behind us when we were on the stage this morning, the number of different different sponsors that were outlined on that arch, and also in the programme and so forth, and the fact that they did the ceremonial start and they've got the town stage this evening. they've clearly thought about this. An awful lot of time and effort's gone into not just running a rally, but actually making it wash its face.
That's absolutely, like you say, it does need a lot of support from local businesses and companies, because it's a big task to organise a rally, especially one of this scale. So you need to help and support the locals, but also want to give them something back for their help.
Jason Pritchard and Phil Clark. That's I think a Shane Williams prepared car from what I understand, the Escort RS 1800. Before that we didn't mention Hugh James and Lewis Sim. Very neat and tidy in the Mark IIs. We're starting to get the Mark II Escorts coming through now, and you know, okay, we talked about it earlier on about how the longevity and the fact that so many Mark IIs are still rallying, but they're actually still competitive, you know, and they're still doing well in terms of the championship. Darren Atkinson, who we'll see, car 24, is third overall currently in the Protyre. And I don't want to jinx it. We talked about commentators' curse this morning, but should easily win his class in the Protyre series this year, and a very well turned out, lovely, well driven Mark II.
That's it. You can't deny how nice that car is. Here we go again. We saw the got a modern two-wheel drive now. So what an absolutely different level of machinery that is. The noise is fantastic. But yeah, you're right. Some of the Mark II Escorts that we've got, the top two-wheel drive class here, have turned out absolutely immaculately. Better than new, of course they are.
But of course you can buy a new Mark II Escort. The likes of Viking Motorsport, Phil Mills' company in Newtown, will build you a new Mark II, or indeed, as Phil's driving this weekend, a brand new Mark I.
That's it. Yeah, you can. I think you can now buy every panel, is it, for a Mark I or a Mark II Escort to build a brand new one, starting from an original 70s shell. But yeah, you know, I think it's each to their own sort of preference. I think my preference we spoke about before is kit cars, front wheel drive cars, sequential gearboxes. But maybe that's just a generational thing.
You see, Mark II Escort always puts a smile on my face, I've got to say. And I've talked about this before. By the way, Kyle White that was, and Sean Topping in the Peugeot. This should be another Peugeot, indeed it is. Johan Lloyd and Sean Williams in the second of the Peugeot 208s. And I know I've said this in the past on the live streams, but I remember visiting Phil not long after he opened Viking Motorsport, and he'd got Mark IIs literally on the shelf. They picked them up with a forklift, and they bought them from places like Malta, where they don't rust particularly. And you had these lovely old sort of pastel blue and slightly weird beige Mark IIs, I don't know, 1.1s, 1.3s, whatever they were, just literally on the shelf, ready to be turned into rally cars. So very astute, looked ahead, found these cars with very, very little rust. And now, of course, years later, he's seeing the benefit and turning them into quite expensive rally cars.
That's it. And, I wonder where those cars are now. But you're right. I think when you're building a rally car, or any rally car, starting from a really good shell is probably the most important part. And then obviously they go into the hundreds and hundreds of hours of shell work over there. But you're right. I don't think I can say there's not been a bad car turned out of that premises. So they're all immaculate, brand new. The ultimate, would you say, Escort?
Oh, pretty much. And also, you have to mention it's not just the Escorts, because there's now somebody making new, in inverted commas, Metro 6R4s.
Yes, I saw that across the weekend. I mean, that's going to be something else. All these cars now going back, it's the sound of a 6R4 that is something else.
I see. I got a soft spot for Lancia Integrales, Delta Integrales, and yeah, okay, I'm still in mourning for the two rallycross cars, the Sebastian Loeb cars that went up at Liddon Hill. But somebody the other day had a concept of a new Integrale, and it looked fantastic.
See, these, is it resto mods, what they call them?
Right, yeah.
Absolutely incredible. So the cars that we love now coming back to life again.
There is Darren Atkinson, we mentioned earlier, with Matthew Daniels alongside, car 24, and running out of position before that because of reseeding, the Ford Fiesta of Kyle McBride and Liam McIntyre from the Rally Academy from Motorsport Ireland. They've got a couple of their teammates running further on down the order, but they're seeded at 30 but running just ahead of Darren, who's seeded at 24. But Darren, as I say, third overall in Protyre, going well, and should, fingers crossed, take the class with ease again this year.
Absolutely, but as we said before, on these sort of stages now, we saw in the first loop the attrition rate, so it's a difficult job to do because you want to try and keep focus, keep on the pace, but you've got that in the mind. You've got to finish both days with being a double header, but you can't then drop too much time. So it's by the looks of it, just flat out and go for the win.
Yeah, when I spoke to both Neil and to Callum at the ceremonial start, there is no holding back. You've got to go flat out from stage one.
That's it. Stage one was just over 5 miles. This one's just over 4 miles. Yes, we've got a 17-mile stage just after this one, but you can't relax and rest and let someone to take a handful of seconds out of you, because it'll be incredibly difficult to get it back. Especially now the road's dried up, because we'll probably see in the times the actual gaps will get smaller and smaller as the second passer stages get a little bit more familiar, more grip. Those times will come tumbling.
Well, I know the Protyre Championship is 2 separate events, but of course the rally itself is one event over 2 days. And I was thinking, okay, Merian's had a puncture, he's lost whatever it was. He then took something like 9 seconds back out of Oshan on the next stage, and I thought, oh, we've got game on here. And clearly Oshan's upped his game, because he was quickest on the previous stage and now quickest on this one. So no, I think we've got some really good battles to end the season, particularly from a Protyre point of view.
Yeah, we have, and like you say, with the championship going on to the last 2 rounds or last 2 days, that is just winner takes all almost, and that really does promote good, fair fighting, battling on the stages. Being like rallying's one of those team sports, the camaraderie between the crews has been brilliant. We saw last night, each crew egging each other on, so it's brilliant to see them, and we can keep an eye on those times.
Wayne Jones, I think that was, in car 26, another Darien, with Elgin Davis alongside. Now, 27 is William Hill, but we know that he's running out of position. He's running something like 48th, was it, on the road from this morning? Both of us trying to remember.
42nd, 43rd, in the 40s.
In the 40s. So won't be William Hill through next, although a regular in the Protyre series. So potentially an Impreza, a car that you know well, coming through next with Richard Clues and Carl Williamson from my neck of the woods. Should be car 28, another Protyre crew coming through the stage next. And having set them up, it probably won't be now.
It's always the case we stood here waiting. Oh no, it is. You're absolutely right. But yeah, honestly, it's good to see Richard back after last year. A little misdemeanor. They get a well-developed Subaru. You don't see many Subarus really on the stages these days. They went through a phase where it'd be most cars, so it's nice to see one out. And I'm sure there's still many tucked away in garages around the UK, which need to come back out again.
We touched on this because it's the fashion, whatever's in vogue at the moment. So I think a few years ago there were lots of Citroens around, and we've always had Mark II Escorts or whatever, but there seems to be a car that's fashionable. Maybe that's the Polo R5 at the moment. I don't know, but the Subaru, as you say, and the Evo at one point, virtually every other car on a rally was one or the other.
It was, the Group N scene was huge at one point. Even when you had the Evo Challenge, was it 2010, maybe a little bit after that, where you sort of had 15, 20 Evos. Was it 7 British champions on the Pirelli in 1 year? All in Mitsubishi Evo 9. So they've all got to be somewhere. We need to see them back out again.
R29, that is, the escort of Will Rowlands and Emir Hall. Again, Protyre competitors. We've already seen 30 through, which was Kyle McBride and Liam McIntyre in the Fiesta. So should be another one of the Protyre regulars. Another man who's had a disappointing year this year. Will be regrouping over the winter. Should be Brad Cole through next in 31. The lovely blue Mark II Escort. Brad's retired?
Brad and Jamie.
What's that, Brad and Jamie? Where?
I'm not sure, they just put it in the chat.
While I've been talking, it's popped up on the WhatsApp group, so I fished my phone out of the pocket. So 31, there was me flagging them up. Brad Cole and Jamie Vaughan. It was a lovely blue Mark II Escort, but indeed no, on our information WhatsApp group, Jamie's just put on alternator, that's us out. So sadly, we won't be seeing Brad and Jamie today, although they might run tomorrow, bearing in mind it's effectively another event. Gary Thomas and Linda Thomas, that is, in 32, the Escort. More bad luck for Brad, he's had one of those seasons. He was there or thereabouts last year. This year, just, what's the old line? If you didn't have bad luck, you wouldn't have any luck at all.
That's it. The other phrase I guess used is that's rallying, and I hate it because you always know that something hasn't gone to plan if someone goes, oh, that's rallying. But do you know what it is? And like you say, with another whole day's worth of, a whole point scoring day tomorrow, then maybe an alternator change and back out tomorrow to see what they can get. At the end of the day, they've still got, is it 45 stage miles tomorrow?
Yep.
So it's still a whole national level rally in terms of mileage. So if you can, you might as well get back out there.
Yeah, there's more Protyre points on offer. I'm not sure where that. I think he's nowhere near the class lead, because obviously Darren is doing so well in the Escort 24. But Brad, I think, for not bragging rights, but you know what I mean, for his own sense of well-being, let's put it that way, to end the season on a high note. So hopefully we can see Brad and Jamie out tomorrow. And indeed, to be honest, if we can put a clutch, or if they can put a clutch in the Citroen, we may even see Steve Wood and Kenny Hull back out tomorrow, and do the second day of the event as a let's do it all again kind of thing.
That's it. It's a good opportunity. Like you say, you don't want to head into the long winter now on a bit of a downer. You want to be on that front foot. So it would be good to see the two guys out. And again, that's the beauty of rallying and the way it works. You can do that, get it repaired, and back out for the morning. Yeah,
and also we're finishing the year earlier than we normally would this year. We're first weekend of September, and it's the final, two events of the Protyre Championship. And we know, if you've been with us, you'll have known that it's because the final round, which was meant to be on Otterburn, that's gone back to the military, so they've cancelled that event, which is why this one is a double header, which is why the early start to the season. A lot of people will be fidgeting and twiddling their thumbs for a lot longer than normal this winter.
That's it, definitely. I mean, usually your winter is rebuild time, but from where are we now, the start of September through to the start of next year, it's a long time. So yeah, maybe some new builds, some refreshes, or yeah, I dare I say we'll see a couple of guys out on some other events just to keep yourself handy for the rest of the year.
I think the plan is for us certainly to we'll have a look at the Three Shires, which is in a fortnight's time, which is an event that didn't run last year, was cancelled very short notice because of the death of the Queen. But that's potentially looking at a slot in next year's championship. I know Paul Morris, who's the championship coordinator of the Protyre series, will be co-driving Steve Wood, bizarrely, on that event. So we're going to be out on that event, trying a few things out, and maybe seeing the event as a whole, and wondering maybe if it'll appear in the series next year. Who's this? Another Protyre crew. Will Onions and Dave Williams. Did I call him Will O'Nions at one point? I probably did, but there's no apostrophe. It's definitely Onions, isn't it?
Now you've said that, I seem to remember a conversation ongoing.
Don't tell me I got it right.
I think we're going to have to ask him, aren't we? I've always, it's been Will Onions. But maybe I've been wrong all these years too.
The look of doubt on your face. Ooh, we'll have to ask him later on. Producer Wayne, Will Onions. Oh, you're not getting involved. You're not taking sides in this one. You thought it was Will Onions, okay. I think I've called him Will Onions at one point. Possibly. What do I know? I'm just a new boy. Car 36 then, moving swiftly on. No one's prepared to come back at me on that one. Should be Rob Smith and Alan Cook through next in 37, another Escort. Another Protyre crew, 37. Now 38, we talked about this morning, should have been a Darien but wasn't. That's the Escort G3, isn't it?
It is, yes, of Lee Edwards. An absolutely immaculate car, and the sound is, I think, better than even it looks, if that was even possible. I want to say it's a Jaguar V6, but I think it's one for the Facebook comments, isn't it, Mark?
They've been very good to us so far, I've got to say. Let's just have a quick look at what people are saying. Nice things, hopefully, about our live stage. We're on stage 5 of the day's 8, and remember, Paul Woodford and Hugh Hunter are on stage 6, and then we all head back down to Aberystwyth for 7 and 8. Indeed. Oh, flinging it in.
There's commitment, and then there's that. Wow. I honestly thought we had the commentator's curse of saying how nice it looked, and then the bank was getting ever closer, but no, phenomenal piece of driving.
So Arshan Price leading by 41.2 seconds from Aaron Evans, who's moved up to second, 1.4 seconds ahead of Black. Ooh, this is really looking juicy at the head of the leaderboard.
That's right.
That G3, I'm trying to think. Alan Edwards, I think, with Ed Morgan from my neck of the woods, used to compete in it was a white Escort G3 back in the day. Self-developed, maybe not self-developed, but maybe it was certainly not an official Ford project, let's put it that way.
Interesting. I think that's a little bit before my time, isn't it?
Thanks. Thanks. First dig of the afternoon.
So I guess actually looking at the Protyre leaderboard after that one before the next 17 miler. So Callum's got a lead of 19 seconds over James Ford. So James is closing in a little bit there actually, who is then 59.2 ahead of Neil Roskell. So it's closing up between the first and second, but I still think that obviously with the battle between Callum and Neil.
I'm trying to catch up on the comments, and my phone just keeps running the stage. So apologies if you're sending us comments, but me being technically illiterate, I'm not able to call up your comments, so my apologies. I will keep trying. So, that was an Impreza. You do remember those, don't you?
I do. I had one. Actually, I didn't have a hatchback shape. I had the previous generation to that.
I'm pleased to hear that. 'Cause what was the line we used to run in Rally Sport magazine? Born under a bad sign. I think you can say those. You don't remember that either. But yeah, it was rally cars that promised a lot. That shape. I think to me and to countless others, Subaru Impreza rally cars were saloons, not hatchbacks, and preferably in mica blue with gold wheels. Know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Or maybe white with gold wheels, because that's what I had. But so back in the day we had an ex-Protyre recce car turned obviously into a stage rally car. Never actually managed to do a rally in that one with COVID getting in the way, but still a nice thing to have and to test for a little bit of time.
Let's just do the name checks. Lee Hastings and Cole Hastings you saw in 39, Steve Nibbs and Gerwin Barry in 40. Next one through should be another one of these pretty little Citroens. It should be Chris Ford and Neil Coleman, car 41. Oh, Chris. Producer Wayne, that is one way of guaranteeing to make the highlights real, I guess. Chris just yeah, Wayne is nodding. So, Chris and Neil in car 41, the Citroen 3C3 Rally 2. Unfortunately stalling, just pulling away from that left-hander. And compared to this morning, that's that's definitely the commentator's curse. Let's not go there.
I knew where you were going
with
that
one.
So,
I stopped.
Who's next? Is it Ant Eaton?
It is, yeah. There's no 42, as we mentioned this morning. That's been very sensibly reserved for Craig, the hashtag in memory of Craig Breen. So no car 42 on this event. Ant Eaton, it should be next with Ian Jackson in an R5 Plus Fiesta. Quite deceptive here because we could hear the cars at least approaching us where we were earlier, but we're in a valley here and we're not hearing them until they're virtually on top of us. And yeah, the main road, I was going to say, yeah, the main road's behind us. You can actually hear them driving to the next stage, or I think possibly coming from the previous stage to this one. And also, are our helicopters back again? No, we saw them flying back earlier on. There's a 2-minute gap, we're being told. Thank you. We did get the plug-in from Mull Car Club as well. Very friendly marshals where we are. Here we go. Indeed it was, 43. Anthony Eaton and Ian Jackson in the bright yellow Fiesta. Dreadful colour for a rally car, yellow.
Not on this, a micro kit car, it's not.
Darn it. He picked up on it. So, okay, how far is this car developed? Because we saw a comment on one of the posts earlier saying, where can we see pictures of this car?
Oh, man, I need to upload some more, some new recent ones. So the shell is pretty much done. So I bought it with the shell almost there. We're in the phase of just about to kick off an engine. So it's been lots of conversations the past few months. A rear beam is underway. Some dampers are on order. We've just fitted an AP brake kit. So it's at that point where now once the engine gets underway, we can start a rewire and it will all come together quite quickly. But it's just the big bits, and then we can start all the tinkering little bits. But yeah, Matthew Jackson Rally, and I'll get some pictures uploaded. Well done.
Mike English, that was another Protyre competitor in 44, the Rally 2 Fiesta. A little bit reluctant going up the hill, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite wide cars, aren't they? And I suppose that is quite a narrow gate that they've got at the top there. But what is impressive to see, we spoke about it before, like the Fiesta and how many different iterations of models there's been, but just with the modern technology, just how these cars stop and turn in, if you compare some of the Mark II Escorts, it's just a completely different mannerism of car as it comes into the corner. You can see it just here. I guess the dry roads now help, but you really can see.
Oh, whereabouts is that? So 42, who's... Hang on, can't be 42. No, there is no 42. So possibly 43. The marshal's just very kindly sent us a picture showing that there's a fence down just up the road from us, which was tagged car 42. There is no 42. 41, Chris Ford in the Citroen. Has he stopped, or he's just taken the fence out? Oh, right in front of the spectators as well. What a place to do it. Oh, he has stopped, so he's put an OK board out. So they've stopped. So 41. Oh, that's a shame. Another one of the Citroens. Chris Ford and Neil Coleman having stopped up by the fan zone, the spectator area. So if you're going to do it anywhere.
It's actually moving on the tracker.
Oh, OK. You've got the tracker going. OK, we'll keep an eye on that. You have
live pictures.
Yeah. You have to also picture the scene. There's two of us, four hands. I'm holding a microphone and a clipboard, and you're deep in your phone with about 3 screens open. Another favourite amongst the Protyre crews, long-standing competitor in the series, Steve Ormond-Smith from the Isle of Man, and Callum Young alongside him in the Evo 9. Actually, is that the first Evo we've seen? I think it might be.
I think it is. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
We've seen a couple of Imprezas.
Yeah, there is another Evo 9 a bit further down the field, but actually, yeah, you're right. I think that's the highest seeded Evo. Wow, again, I've seen before. You wouldn't expect that, would you?
No, absolutely.
A few years ago.
Yeah. Just back in the day, during the war, you used to see, as I was saying, almost every other car was either an Impreza or an Evo. Remember all the, again, you're probably far too young, but do you remember all the road tests that the likes of Top Gear did, putting the Impreza up against, head-to-head against the Evo? You do remember, excellent, good. I don't feel so silly now. That'll be Will. So yeah, running at 47th, there we are, I was one out. So 47th instead of his original seeded position. And that, if you just explain once again for anybody who wasn't with us earlier, change of car.
It is. So Will's been in a Rally 3 Fiesta all year so far, so the new generation four-wheel drive Fiesta, so the Rally 3 car, has now changed to this R200. So it's the older 1600 Fiesta R2 with a kind of a performance kit added, so to give it a bit of extra power and stuff. So really good cars, and obviously Will can certainly pedal it. So as we can see there.
Yes. You kind of feel sorry for the little cars when you come to. I remember doing a gravel event in South Wales, and the stage started. It was in, I think, Resolve in Oriola, and at the long climb uphill in a Mark II Escort off the start line, and you just thought, this is going to be painful until we get to the top of this hill. Mark and Claire Lennox in an Escort, 47. Oh, but actually, starting to tackle that climb, just kicking up a little bit of dust, and going for it. But no, just on gravel, rear-wheel drive, Mark II Escort, and it was just, let's just get to the top of this hill. and it was painful. I can still remember my driver going, come on, you know.
That's right. I mean, I started my life in some very standard Nissan Micra, so a 1 litre standard engine, standard gearbox Nissan Micra going up the hill in Garthainog. It was almost a newspaper-worthy job, let's say. When you get to the top, it's fantastic, but before that, it's not the most exhilarating.
Yeah, the driver I'm thinking of was a chap called Martin Mansell, who was a cameraman colleague of mine at the BBC, and conversely, coming downhill on the same event, he was flying downhill, and I was really thinking, how are we going to get around the corner at the end? Car 49, Philip Rogers and Sean Jones. Now we did it though. I'm still here, but I'm pretty sure there's a picture of us in a ditch coming out of that downhill. But he clearly enjoyed downhills far more than he enjoyed uphills.
That's it. And sometimes you know where the car's weaknesses are, so we had exactly the same. I remember in Panperthog one year, there's a big long uphill for anyone who's ever done that great gravel stage. But you get right to the very top, and you know then from that point forward you can't touch the brake, or you can't slow down too much because you need to make up the time. I remember our competitors looking at the times thinking that it'll be easy to get some seconds out of us, and we actually pulled 1 second out of him. And I remember his look when he came to the end, and I won't repeat what he said, but I think he was impressed.
Very good. Now, I just need to flag that the next stage, stage 6, gets underway in about 7 minutes' time or thereabouts. So if you're watching us on Facebook, expect an alert any second that we're about to go live on our other streams. As we see car 50, Barry Stevenson, Wheeler and John Pickavance go past us in another escort. But yes, Paul and Hugh are on the long stage today, Cwm Ystwyth. And so the plan is, I think, from memory, from our conversation this morning, which seems an awfully long time ago, that neither of us is going to do all cars through their stage this afternoon, because we are going to cut and run down to Aberystwyth, set up on the town stage, and bring you that from just before 6:30, where, fingers crossed, we'll have 2 cameras up and running, and Paul can chat to some of the drivers at the end of what is the first day of the rally, but also, of course, the first of 2 rounds, as we keep saying, of the Protyre Championship, the penultimate round of the series, with tomorrow's event being the final. So expect that to go live very shortly. If, however, you want to stay with us for the remainder of the field through stage 5, you are more than welcome. It's Mark James and Matthew Jackson stood at the side of junction 3 on stage 5. William Main's going well in the Nova. Are you saying, what was the other car he's got? He's got a Corsa.
He has, yeah. I believe he's got 2 Novas in the Corsa.
That's just greedy.
It is. They're all very much the same, aren't they, in terms of an older one and a newer one, but they're always immaculately turned out, sequential gearboxes, 1400s. Really strong cars. And I know Will loves his Vauxhall, so yeah, nice to see him back out again. It's been a bit of time, actually.
Yeah, and also, it's, you know, we've talked about this, and okay, we're having a bit of a well, I'm not having a moan about the fact that there's so many Mark IIs, but it is nice to see something a little different. There is, from memory, there's 1 Talbot Sunbeam on the event. We saw him earlier on. There's a couple of Gilburns that we talked about. There's a Lotus. There's a Ginetta. And there is also a spectacle of Phil Mills, if he's still going, in his Mark 1. Brand new Mark 1, as we see Mike Harbour and Ian McDougall go through. Protyre competitors, car 52, another Mark II Escort. But if you weren't with us earlier, you'll be as saddened as I was to know that the last 4 cars through the stage are the UK Armed Forces rally team Land Rover Defenders, and this morning's stage saw 3 of the 4 have incidents where we were filming. And so I believe only possibly 1 or 2 of those Defenders are still going, which to me is a great shame, because they have been a stalwart, a regular part of British rallying as long as I can remember.
They have, and they're, like I said before, they're always really receptive to helping people. It's good to see them out. You know, those people do a lot for the country, I would suppose. It's great to see them out on these rallies and bringing those Defenders out. They're always really entertaining to watch. As we said before, though, with the opportunity to go back out tomorrow, you never know. One of them only had a broken radiator, so maybe, just maybe, we'll see them back out tomorrow.
Everybody winced, I think, when you heard that sort of lock up of the brakes and then a crunch as he tapped his colleague. and that could have been a lot worse than it actually was. And I know, looking back at the footage, there was at one point, though, I think one of the navigators, one of the co-drivers, was trying to flag down their colleagues, and it did appear at one point that he was actually potentially between the two, but pleased to say everybody's fine, everybody walked away, and the recovery guys came into the stage to recover the vehicles. Producer Wayne is looking at me.
Wrap it up now.
You want me to start wrapping up? But we haven't seen the Gilburns yet.
The other guys.
Oh, okay. Okay, well in that case we shall see the Gilburns. I'm actually quite sad now. Where are they? Oh, not for a while actually, not for a couple of pages. So 58, Jonathan Stepney and Alan Davis in the Clio. Protyre competitors again. Yeah, I'm having to turn over a couple of pages. The two Gilburns that we were discussing earlier, 93 and 94. Chris and Mark Jones in the Invader and the Genie. Rare stuff. When I educated you about Gilburn earlier on, you were mostly receptive, I've got to say.
I was, and then I then looked at my phone and realised Mum had sent me a picture of one in a museum that they saw in Derbyshire. So there you go, small world, as they say.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, because producer Wayne is not quite glaring at us, but I've seen that look before, so I think that's where we wrap up proceedings on this stage, which will give us plenty of time. Where are we? 3:30. So we need to get down to Aberystwyth, find ourselves a parking space, sort the satellite and everything out. So we will be heading down to the last pair of stages of the day, all being well, because they're obviously on air after us. So Paul and Hugh, Paul Woodford and Hugh Hunter, who are now live on the next stage, stage 6, if you want to have a look at that live stream. So switch over to that if you will, and all being well, the 4 of us will join you from the Aberystwyth town stage a little bit later on. But from what is becoming a very nice afternoon here in Mid Wales, the sun is out, not that many clouds in the sky, and we have in prospect not only the battle for the rally overall, but also the Protyre championship title is also far from settled. So from Matthew Jackson and me, Mark James, have a good afternoon. We'll see you from Aberystwyth a little bit later.